Hello, my name is Jeff Livingston. I'm the historian with the Hawaiian Railway Society. We've been doing a series of these programs recently, and I truly hope you enjoy them. If you have any suggestions for topics you would like us to discuss about the railroad, streetcars, anything having to do with rail, please give the Society a call and let us know what topic you would be most interested in. Today, I thought we'd talk a little bit about passengers. With the new system coming online and the second phase about to start seriously testing and in preparation for opening, what was it like in 1889 when the Oahu Railway and Land Company first started running passenger trains? As you may know, the railroad began as a passenger railroad. There was very little freight other than some bananas and rice perhaps for the railroad to haul, and they had to make their money by moving people. Well, people just don't go from point A to point B for very long for the novelty of it. So when the Evan Mill construction began and Pearl Harbor and then Pearl Lagoon was opening up, and the development of Pearl City Peninsula, the OR&L would run excursion trains. These were run every day. They were run especially on weekends, any kind of special events. Special events of all kinds were scheduled, yacht racing, any kind of water activity that was competitive. They'd run special trains and excursions. They even went so far as to build a dance pavilion so that they had a reason to take people from Honolulu out to Pearl Lagoon for just some relaxation and something different. Plus, they also touted the fact that it was cooler than in Honolulu. The original cars of the passenger cars of the OR&L were purchased from the Carter brothers in Newark, California. And one of the first cars, Carter car, is number 11. Now, this is not the number of the car when it was new. When it was new, it carried the number, one of the numbers, 1 through 8. This photograph was taken somewhere between 1939 and 1941, and it had been renumbered. The OR&L's numbering system is beyond any way to understand. But these cars, there were 2 first-class coaches, there were 2 second-class coaches, there were 2 combination baggage smoking coaches, and then there were 6 what they called platform cars. So you had first-class coaches, second-class coaches, and third-class platform cars. The differences between these classes of cars, well, the platform cars were obvious, but the first-class cars were very ornate inside. Now this photograph is of one of the cars at the time it was delivered. It did not remain in this condition. It was too expensive. But you notice the overhead is all decorated. The seats are plush and they have springs in them. The second-class car would be similarly adorned without all of the fancy overhead, and the seats would be hard wood. The other interesting thing we discovered during our research is that the first-class car fittings were nickel. So the doorknobs, the door locks, everything in the WC water closet were nickel, and the second-class cars, they were brass. If you were riding in a third-class car, this is what you were confronted with. This is another original picture of the third-class car. It's essentially a flat car with some benches, a roof, and platforms. These were later considered to be second-class cars when the OR&L added air brakes to them. Now, one car we haven't talked about is the Pearl. The Pearl was not actually owned by the OR&L until many years after. Pearl was purchased by Benjamin Franklin Dillingham and was meant to be a private car. It came equipped with a set of royal blue curtains embroidered with the royal coat of arms, as well as standard curtains, so that should royalty ride in the car, then the embroidered curtains would be used. To our knowledge, no king or queen ever rode in this car, but they were at least prepared to do so. Now, Pearl was a very high standard car. It had two WCs, one for the ladies, one for the gentlemen. It had curtained partitions in the middle. The windows were far different in layout. The standard Carter car coach had 13 windows, and you can see here the windows in Pearl were not only larger, but there were fewer of them. The interior of Pearl was even more highly decorated than that of a first-class coach. This would be considered a chair car. There were no fixed seats. All of the chairs were movable. There were tables that could be installed or removed as necessary, and it was quite a luxurious car. The fate of this car is unfortunate. Sometime around 1925, after it had been sold to the OR&L, it was converted to a standard second-class coach. Later in its life, I believe it was around 1939, it was converted to an observation car, where about half of the car had been, all of the sides removed, the end moved up, and there was an open deck in the rear of the car. Now, the car did survive through abandonment, and it survived after abandonment. It was donated to the Hibiscus and Helconia Railway. That was a group of railway enthusiasts that operated up in Kahuku. Excuse me. They had number 48, the observation car. They had a first-class passenger car up there, and they would operate periodic fan trips. Kahuku locomotives would pull them, and they got to a point where Kahuku no longer operated the trains, either steam or diesel, and they asked for them to be removed. The owners could not afford to move them, and they were burned in place. So from 1889, when the Pearl was first built and brought to Hawaii, she survived until about 1950, early 50s, when she was burned. A sad ending for a beautiful, beautiful car. Around 1900, things began to change at the railroad, and standard terminology changed with it. So no longer do we just have coaches, first class, second class combination. By 1900, the third class cars, which had become second class cars, were gone. They were converted back into just strictly freight cars. There began a change in nomenclature so that we bring in chair cars, we bring in Pullman type. It gets very confusing to try and track each of these cars. One of the changes that the OR&L made and we're not sure exactly which cars, but at least 2 cars received heavy modifications to both first and second class. Instead of just strictly a first class car or strictly a second class car, these cars were modified. They had a center door so they could carry small, less than carload freight items. One end of the car was first class, one end of the car is second class. The only picture we have found of those cars is not a very good one. It was in the newspaper, and if memory serves, it was actually in the newspaper on Maui. But one end of this car is first class, the other end is second class, and you can see the door in the middle. Now obviously this is OR&L because you can read it on the tender. The Carter cars were insufficient in numbers to keep up with the growing passenger service. As the OR&L expanded, it allowed more people from the outlying rural areas access to Honolulu, as well as people from Honolulu access to further areas outside of Honolulu. The OR&L never gave up on their excursions, but they did start building their own cars. In 1900, construction started on the first new built passenger cars in the OR&L shop at Eagle Lake. John A. Hughes was the master car builder, and these cars were built to his designs. Now his designs followed Carter very closely. However, they were heavier and more sturdy than the Carter cars. In 1900, there was also the first observation car, which later became number 64, was built in the OR&L shops, again, John Hughes. John Hughes, Dillingham hired him away from the San Francisco Bridge Company. He was an engineer, very highly qualified, and observation car 64 is unique in that 1/3 of its platform is essentially self-supporting. The structure underneath all of the wood, it does in fact look like a bridge structure. It is the only car of its type with a observation platform of that size to anyone's knowledge that was ever built. So those first cars in 1900, 1901, this is an example of one of those very first cars. Again, the number was applied sometime around the 20s, so we do not know what the actual number was at the time of construction. This car is a first class car, and we have a car similar to this built later at the railway that is in desperate need of restoration, but that's a whole nother topic and a whole nother series of restoration efforts. But this is what the car would have looked like, those very first 5. And you can see the similarity with the Carter cars. 64, the observation car, a totally different design. The windows are larger, complete with an awning to protect the people on the back end. Now this car was used by royalty, although it was post-overthrow. This was Dillingham's personal private car, but it could be rented. It was used for hunting trips, it was used for excursions, and fortunately this car survives to this day at the Hawaiian Railway Society. It has been restored, and it is operated once a month as part of a regular train. Reservations for this car are required, and there is a premium cost for it, but it is a marvelous car to ride, very smooth, and just a gorgeous piece of equipment. Now, about this same time, 1901, the OR&L converted some car into a funeral car. The car was named Sharon, and this was to convey remains from Honolulu to a cemetery nearby Pearl City. We have no photographs of this car. We don't know exactly what it looks like or looked like. But if you recall, I said the first new builds were the 5 first-class passenger cars, along with 64. And by a description in the newspaper of the first funeral car, it was done in 3 months. So it probably was a modified version of one of the 5 cars just built. This is further confirmed by a very angry editorial article, letter to the editor by a Honolulu citizen who rode the car from Honolulu to the cemetery and complained that the stench about gagged the living passengers, and it was just a standard day coach with nothing more than a heavy curtain separating the living from the dead. Based on that description as a standard day coach, and based on the fact that the newspaper reported that this car only took 3 months to put together, it is my opinion that one of the first 5 coaches built by the OR&L became that first funeral car. We have no absolute proof. We don't know for certain. No pictures, no nothing. The description in the paper says it was appropriately decorated and had a beer in the compartment. But past that, we know nothing about the car. 1 year later, it was followed by a second purpose-built funeral car. It was never named, to our knowledge. It was never numbered, to our knowledge. And we have no photographic evidence that it ever existed. All we have to go on is the newspaper report. But it did indicate that the caskets could be rolled in and out of the car through a door. How that door was constructed, what it looked like, we have no idea. Tracing the history of the OR&L passenger cars and all of their equipment is very difficult because there is so much material lost. During our research at Bishop Museum, we came across a picture of a car we had no idea existed. We do not know what number car this is. We don't know whether it's considered a combination coach, a passenger coach. We have no idea. And this is from around 1911. It's about the same size as caboose C1. We know there were other cabooses besides C1 which still exists, so this could also have been considered a caboose. This photograph was located in the Hawaiian dredging section, not the OR&L section, so there remains a number of unknowns. Besides the standard coaches, first and second class, and the combination coaches, which were considered smoking coaches, the OR&L also had other cars in their passenger trains, most notably baggage cars. Now, there's a newspaper article from 1907 that reports receipt of a mail coach. Again, we have no information whatsoever on what this car looked like, or even if it actually existed, other than that one mention in the newspaper. And as I'm sure you're aware, newspapers, as of now and then, are not always the most accurate in their reporting. The OR&L did build baggage cars, however. This is an example of one of the baggage cars. This is number 43, and it was built in 1914. Now, this car, you can see it is a mail coach. So whether or not it was outfitted as a mail coach would have had letter boxes and all of the accoutrements required by the U.S. Postal Service, we don't know. We can't see inside of it. But this type of, there were 4 baggage cars built by the OR&L. This is the only one that we know of that states it as a mail coach. The second group of cars built by the OR&L, this was around 1917. This group of cars were similar in body style to the original first and second class cars. I apologize for the poor picture, but this is as good as we can get. The car on the left is an earlier car, either Carter or OR&L. It's the 2 cars behind it that are of interest. As I said, these are 1917. If you notice, the roof is round. The car on the left has what is known as a clear-story roof. And there are vents up in that raised section to help cool the car so hot air could leave. The 2 cars behind it do not have those vents. I believe these to be the second series of cars, or a later car built circa 1917. Later in life, these cars received clear-story roofs, but we have no idea when. Based on the photographic evidence through the 1920s, 30s, and 40s, there are none of these cars seen. It's only 1917, 1920 era that we can find those. Now, the OR&L did build later, 1922, among the last of their passenger cars they built, what they called a second-class car or a commuter coach. This did not have a clear-story window by design. One of these cars still exists, and it happens to be the one you're looking at, number 57. It is at the Hawaiian Railway Society. It has been undergoing restoration for a number of years now. It has ventured out twice just to test to see how it rolls and how it operates, with the most recent being just last week. This car will be placed back in operation in early February for the rededication of the Merci boxcar from France. It will not be in regular service, but it will be its first operational service. These cars, if you recall the nice plush interiors of the one photograph, these cars were nothing but hard scrabble, hardwood seats. We have some of these seats installed in 57, but we don't have all of them. 57, along with 14 other cars, were sold to the U.S. Army Air Force for use at Hickam Air Force Base after abandonment. Shortly thereafter, the Army Air Force became the U.S. Air Force and abandoned rail operations at Hickam, and all but one of these cars were scrapped and burned. Number 57, somehow or other, found its way up to Naval Magazine, ʻŌlelo, where it survived at least until 1965, and sometime after that it was purchased by a gentleman in California, shipped to California, and used on his El Camino Cable and Northern Railway. It returned to Hawaii circa 1974, and it is just about ready to go back on the rails, on its home rails, for the first time in years. The very last car built by the OR&L, passenger car, was combination car number 40. Now, this car looks similar to 57 and its brothers and sisters. However, it's shorter. This car too still exists, but it's over on Maui, and it is used as a cabin or a house. I'm not sure exactly what its use is, but it still exists. It's intact. The wheels and trucks appear to still be underneath it. And if anybody over on Maui knows who owns this car, tell them that we would love to get it back over here. I know, fat chance of that happening, but I would be remiss if at least I didn't ask. The introduction of the automobile, like everywhere in the United States, severely impacted the passenger service on the OR&L. They would run trains originally from Honolulu to Kahuku, Honolulu to Waipahu, Honolulu to Wahiawa Schofield Barracks. One by one, those lines were converted to buses or rail cars, to the point where passenger service was almost completely abandoned prior to the Second World War. With the advent of the war, everything changed. The OR&L had built a couple of motor cars, but that'll remain a story for a future segment. Again, I hope you enjoy our little presentations here, and I encourage you, come out to the railroad, see what we're all about. We need volunteers. We will find something for you to do. It doesn't have to be a long-term commitment. 4 hours on a Saturday, once a month, twice a month, once a year. We'll find something for you where it can be, your time can be constructively used to the benefit of the society, and it meets your skill set. Come on out. I'm out there almost every Saturday. Hunt me down. I'll be moving around somewhere. We'd love to see you. If just for the train ride, it's worth it for an hour and a half, couple hours. Get away from it all. Thanks so much.